Hello, I am urologist Omer Erdamakaya. Today I will have a short video presentation on testosterone, sexual life, and daily activity. Testosterone is one of the most basic sex hormones, designed entirely for the continuation of the generation. Testosterone is a hormone that helps men increase muscle strength, increase bone density, as well as the growth of sexual organs, and the continuation of their lineage. Testosterone is extremely affected by our daily activities. Sleep, nutrition, sports physical activities, and psychosocial interactions are at the top of these daily activities. Now here we can start with sleep in the first place. Sleep should be quality sleep. If there is sleep apnea and severe snoring, the testosterone hormones of the patient are affected. If the sleep time is short or if sleep cannot be obtained at night but can be taken during the day, testosterone is also affected. Eating a heavy meal before going to sleep will always affect testosterone levels. Next comes nutrition. Nutrition is actually a very broad subject. Here I will talk about diets related to nutrition. In studies conducted, the Mediterranean diet is one of the most suitable diets for testosterone. There are also studies on the vegetarian diet and the ketogenic diet. However, there are studies showing that if the ketogenic diet is combined with sports, there is a contribution of 10 to 15%, and contribution of a vegetarian diet is 10 to 15%. However, many more studies are needed, as there are also studies that say the opposite. In the Mediterranean diet, foods such as grilled and fried foods, foods with high sugar and glycemic index are avoided. It is necessary to reduce animal foods and put them at the top of the pyramid. I should also point out that when you eat fast food, testosterone decreases by 25% within an hour. It takes about 4 to 5 hours for testosterone to recover. It is necessary to avoid fast food and sugar altogether, to protect testosterone. Apart from that, vitamins and minerals are also included in nutrition. The amount and level of vitamins and minerals in the body are very important. Even if the patient says how well he is eating, vitamin D may be deficient. Vitamin B12 or folic acid may be lacking. Here, I see vitamin D deficiency as a public health issue. Because 75 to 80% of patients are insufficient in vitamin D in laboratory tests. And in vitamin D deficiency, testosterone decrease, sexual reluctance, and fatigue are among the common complaints. The moment we give vitamin D to the patient, we see an increase in testosterone. Also, we can only check vitamin D, B12, and folic acid in the lab. Just because these are low doesn't mean that other vitamins are normal. We can see that many vitamins are low. And besides this, selenium and zinc are very important in patients. These also need to be at certain levels. At the same time, when it comes to nutrition, it is very important to stay away from toxic substances. Toxic substances should not be taken into the body. Packaged foods, processed meat products, phthalates in plastic products, everyday items, and industrial chemicals and heavy metals we are exposed to in the workplace cause testosterone reduction. Lead in battery factory workers, chrome in cement factory workers, BFA in plastic factory workers, and phthalates in the products we use daily and in shampoos are unfortunately negative chemicals that always affect testosterone. These are chemicals that we unwittingly collect in our body like a piggy bank. Apart from that, if we talk about sports activities, the sports activities that provide the most benefit to testosterone are the workouts that activate large muscle groups, using the chest, hip, abdominal or back muscles. And in running, sprint training is also beneficial. However, my own observation is that people over the age of 70 who can still have sexual intercourse once a week or every 2 weeks also adapt sports for some part of their lives. If the patient comes from the village, he is probably engaged in vineyard and gardening. If he is 60 or 70 years old and lives in the city, the patient is probably going to fitness or swimming. These patients are interested in a part of any sport. Like brushing their teeth, the patient has adapted to sports and protected their health. That's why sports are very important, movement is very important. Unfortunately, those who work in some jobs are very unlucky in this regard. The person remains motionless sitting in front of the monitor or in the driver's seat for hours. These people are unfortunately at risk of both cardiac and erectile dysfunction. These people need to be very careful about themselves, they need to provide movement so that blood circulation is achieved. For example, let's say you are 40 years old and you sit all day from morning to evening. Your body doesn't need any movement. Why would testicles produce testosterone? The body doesn't need it. Because the body responds to external stimulations. Psychosocial interactions are also very important. If the patient is having trouble with his boss at work, with his wife at home, if he is experiencing financial difficulties, if his child is sick, if the person falls into a depressed state, we consider testosterone decrease quite normal. Loss of sex drive comes afterward. That is why the mood of a man is very important in testosterone. We can explain this briefly. Think of a soldier fighting at the front. The stress hormones of this soldier, aka the survival hormones adrenaline and cortisol, will rise to a high level, so, the sex hormones will decrease. Because wherever the wheel turns, the other side is missing. If it turns to stress hormones, cortisol and stress, sex hormones will increase. If it turns the other way, the body also experiences adaptation according to the situation of the person. If the person is under chronic stress, stress hormones will inevitably increase and sex hormones will decrease, which we see in many patients. As we age, testosterone will decrease, and cortisol will increase. The more we can change this rate, the more testosterone and our quality of life will increase. We can do this with sports, with nutrition, with sleep. As I said, these are very important. These are the general principles. One of our followers asked if one can use testosterone under the age of 40. My opinion and suggestion is that it should not be used because under the age of 40 you have testicular reserves that can produce testosterone. It is necessary to give them the opportunity and activate them. Testosterone replacement can be used over the age of 60 to 65. By the way, I'm not even talking about smoking and alcohol. Smoking and alcohol use decrease testicular function. In particular, smoking reduces testosterone by 25 to 30% within a month. Other than that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Best regards.